The food shortages are already here. The food shortages we've been talking about for months now have already arrived. But scarcity isn't the only thing revolving around these shortages that we have to be concerned about. And once these shortages get to a point where people are starving or no longer being fed the way that they're used to, people get desperate and more unrest and more problems are likely to arise here in the near future. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're going to talk about the food shortages and how they've already arrived. They're already here. We've talked about them for months now, and I've warned you guys over and over again that getting food should be a top priority. Well, now it's more of a priority than ever before because the shortages we've talked about for months are here and are already happening. They're no longer something we should be planning for, they're something we're experiencing. So if you're new to prepping and you're not sure what to start with, well, right now your biggest priority should be food. These food shortages have been telegraphed for a long time now, and we are experiencing them on a daily basis. If you've been to the store or you've bought anything food related recently, you've probably seen an uptick in the price. And that a lot of the time has to do with scarcity. However, scarcity of food, as in a shortage, is not the only thing that revolves around the idea of a food shortage. And we have to understand that once people stop being fed, and once people stop eating in a way that they're used to, they get desperate and things can happen. And we can expect more unrest and we can expect more problems because people are going to be hungry. And when it comes to making sure your children or the rest of your family are fed, you will get desperate and you will do things that you would not usually have done before. So if you're worried about preparing for SHTF and things like this food shortage are definitely top of mind for you, hit the subscribe button below because I want to keep the conversation rolling, and I think we should all stay on top of our preps together as best we can, especially heading into the more tumultuous time of 2020 here. Okay, so these food shortages, they started a long time ago, and they're just now starting to take effect to where we're seeing it hit our pocketbooks directly, okay? So the distributors are having a hard time keeping up, and the food we're used to seeing is more and more expensive, and there's less of it. So supply and demand, suddenly there's less supply and more demand, and the food is more expensive. So we're seeing a lot of that happen already, and we're seeing people buy more than they might have in the past, which is also causing a supply issue, which is raising the price of the food. So we're all seeing that on a personal basis, that I can now get less food than what I used to get with the same amount of money, okay? So scarcity is there, and a lot of it's based on different factors that came together all at once during the pandemic that made it so we couldn't necessarily get the food supply the way we were used to having it before. What else am I going to talk about? What else is going on right now with the food shortage? Okay, well, it's not just the scarcity of the food. A lot of Americans are suddenly being priced out of the ability to buy food and afford healthy food and get food that we would mostly consider to be healthy and fulfilling when it comes to feeding a family. A lot of Americans have lost their jobs. A lot of people are out of work. They have less of an income than they had before, or even suddenly find themselves on a government assistance program. Well, those people are getting less and less food on the table compared to what they used to have. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the food shortage is affecting them directly in the same way as you and I. It means that they themselves are experiencing a food shortage or scarcity of food due to financial repercussions of what's happened over the last few months. And those people are getting less food on their table and having less money to spend on food. And when they do have money to spend on food, it costs that much more, so they get that much less. People being priced out around the country is happening all over, and a lot of Americans have found themselves applying for food stamps and other welfare-style programs in order to get through the pandemic and what it has done to their financial well-being. And the government's, put out stimulus checks and everything else, but for a lot of families, that still wasn't enough compared to what they were used to living off of before. And a lot of people have lost their jobs and lost their savings during this whole situation that maybe never even planned on being on an assistance program and now finding themselves on one. So those people are suddenly finding that they can't afford food the way that they used to, or they're actually at the point where they're going hungry and not actually eating as much as what they would like to eat or feeding their families as much as they would like to feed them. 2% more American households since the start of the pandemic are experiencing a lack of food on the table. Originally, it was about 8% of American households never really ate as much as they would have liked to when it came to having a fulfilling meal on their table at night. but now it's 10%. So 2% increase in people who are basically going hungry on a daily basis. Not to mention the amount of Americans who've had to apply for more assistance programs with the same budget and even maybe possibly less of a budget for those programs to exist, which means more people are fighting for the same amount of money, which means less money is being dispersed to the people who are being accepted to the program. So all in all, it's a snowball effect of these people that are negatively affected financially, facing their own food shortage and food scarcity. While the actual scarcity, the lack of production and the lack of product in general, is falling right on top of them at the same time, because the food shortage started with our agricultural season from the year before, then it moved into the pandemic, having the issues with the meat packing plants and everything else related to it. Suddenly, now those people also can't afford the food that is being produced. So we talked about two things now related to this food shortage that have been caused by the pandemic. But the third thing that we've all seen be super fragile and honestly something that we all should have seen coming but maybe didn't fully prepare for was the easy way that the logistics system broke down. Our logistics are super fragile, and this food can't even get to where it's supposed to go in a timely fashion. They've had to lay off workers in the factories and in the warehouses and drivers for the trucks. So there's less people producing, less people supplying, and less people delivering the product that we're all looking for. So the shortages are all over the place. It's scarcity of food, it's people being priced out of being able to buy the food, and it's the logistics system not being able to deliver it or to keep up with what we have going on in our country right now, which is a just-in-time delivery system. So those three factors have turned into this mess of a food shortage that we are all currently experiencing. And if you're in the middle of experiencing a food shortage and it's on a personal level for you, make sure that you're doing the best you can to get as much as you can right now, because the food is only going to get more expensive. It's only going to be harder to come by. And I think we all know that with the unrest in the country right now and the tensions as high as they are, people are looking for reasons to lash out. And if you're going hungry or you can't feed your family, you might find yourself out on the streets demanding answers. And that is what we need to also prepare for. So food is a huge priority, and the concept of more unrest and problems coming because of this food shortage should be top of mind as well. You need to make sure you can defend yourself, take care of your family, and have enough food in order to not feel like you are basically at the feet of whoever controls the food supply, okay? I watched a video recently from Alaska Prepper, and he was talking about that concept of how food can control the masses, how the food supply is how you make people do what it is you want them to do, because when people are hungry, they become desperate. So think of it this way. Even if this food shortage is manufactured or maybe not as dire as everyone is reporting it to be, well, they're using it to their advantage as a way to control us. And that's something that they can do. That's something that if you wanted to control a population, you would easily choose that as the most effective way of getting people on board to what it is you want them to do. So Alaska Prepper, thanks for making that video, and thanks for putting that idea in mind, because it's true. If you want to control the masses, control what they eat, and they will definitely do things that they wouldn't have usually done in order to feed themselves and those that they love, okay? So don't become that person. Don't bow down at the feet of those who serve the rations. Make sure you are preparing now to get food and supplies set aside for a decent amount of time to where those people aren't going to be someone you need to seek out, because you already have the supplies needed to take care of you and yours, okay? So I wanted to bring this to your attention. The food shortage is here right now. We're experiencing it right now. And more than likely, due to the tensions in the air right now in the atmosphere of our country, we are going to see more unrest and more problems because of this food shortage. When people can't afford to eat and when people can't feed their children, things get rough quickly, okay? So I wanted to make sure to cover this topic. I wanted to make sure to talk to you all about it. I wanted to make sure that you are out prepping and getting food. You need to be getting food as much as you can. I know we talk about other things on this channel a lot, different types of gear and security items and all other stuff that's fun, you know, more fun than food when it comes to prepping, but this is honestly serious. We have to stay on top of our food because it keeps us free. If you want to stay free and you don't have to bow down at the feet of those who are going to give you the rations or supply you with food when that time comes, you have to set aside your own survival cash now to make sure you're not going to become one of the peons, I guess is the best way to say it. So I wanted to make sure to address this, and I want you to understand, if you are experiencing a food shortage on a personal level right now, it's not necessarily your fault. But I do want you to at least try your best to get out of that rut if possible, because we all know that this pandemic has wrecked a lot of livelihoods and ruined a lot of lives, and not everybody has the means to go out and get weeks and months and years supplies of food off the bat just like that, okay? Some of us were lucky to start doing some of these preps and preparing for these kinds of events before this ever happened, but not a lot of people were that lucky, and not a lot of people were maybe awake to the concept of this being a reality until all of this happened. So, like I said, if you're new to prepping, you're new to preparing, you're ready to step into the world of SHTF prepping, then make sure food is top priority. Start putting it away now, and you won't ever find yourself bowing down at the table of those who are handing out the rations. And without having anything else to say about the food shortage going on right this second, that's going to be it for Magic Prep.